Are we? Final discussion or?
I think that you mentioned that the other day when we talked, and that's fine.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're on. It's a clear understanding.
Yeah, let me question that, because if we're just talking about. Petitions that have been filed, applications have been filed, what the requirements are, that doesn't seem to be a settlement type issue. If you want to break out and have a settlement discussion later, that's fine, but as far as having the county planning and stormwater staff here, they would have nothing to do with settlement.
Well, I think the discussion that we had suggested on the call was that we could get together and walk through the hypotheticals of this road, because I'm getting, the road is a problem. We take the road, if the road comes out, what is it till we can get our building permits?
Yeah, I think that's, I think that part of it. I don't see much of an issue with it. Once you get past that, that gets into zoning land, and I don't know if that has a whole lot to do with any of the lawsuits going on. Do you?
In my view, we're here talking about developments, assuming that the road is going to be taken out, because if it's not going to be taken out, there's going to be planning staff approvals. So
yeah, I want, because we would like to know that.
yeah, and so I would assume we were proceeding on the hypothetical. Hey, if the road comes out, this is exactly what you're going to have to do to get your applications approved at this time.
I think as a practical matter, none of it would be relevant to any lawsuits anyway, would it? Think about it.
I think it would, because one of them is the variance. Challenge.
Sure.
I think that if we get to the point where if this road comes out and we're able to proceed and know exactly what it is to get our permits so that we can construct, then. For the most part, I think all of the things that are tied to the underlying state court case are resolved, and it's just buttoning up those 13 points. I mean, I think we probably are going to have some further judicial intervention on what those 13 points mean, especially after our last conversation, as it applies to number 7. But I mean, it would, I think, resolve the variance appeal.
I don't think we have any intent to use anything y'all say against you. All that it's. I would imagine. It's not a judicial proceeding here, you know.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. So if we're going to treat it like settlement discussions, then nothing can be utilized. If we're not going to treat it like it, then everything can be utilized.
I think everything would be utilized. Because I just don't see the relationship with settlement as far as what the planning staff is going to talk about.
I think that's a little bit, I'll just give my thoughts. I think that's a little bit of a misnomer. I think what you really want to know is whether what's talked about here is going to be admissible in evidence.
Yeah.
I mean, so to that extent, it's a little bit of a misnomer. I don't think it's really about settlement negotiations or any of that. The question is whether this should be admissible in evidence, anything that's said, or if it should be privileged or not subject to evidence in a court proceeding.
Yeah, good.
I didn't think we did either.
Okay. All right. So I guess the quick thing that I just kind of want to open up, and then really I want to take a lot of notes. You know, Todd understands this area much better than I do. Regarding the requirements of the ordinance and what has been asked for and then answered. I think he's been in correspondence with you guys regarding the issues that you have pointed out. So working from the assumption that the 350 feet of what I'll just call the new roadway are removed what are the impediments moving forward? One, so that the house can build a barn, which I thought we had resolved the first meeting. And then moving on to the other issues that are out there.
So by removing the road, do you mean applying for a grading permit to remediate the site?
So let me ask you the first question then. Are you saying that in order to remove the road, we would have to apply to the county for a grading permit?
That would be my understanding, to be able to show that you're remediating the site back to the way it was.
So let's take it with that. So that one. Okay,
And then your other question was about the egg barn. And I got Todd's comments a few minutes ago, so I haven't had a chance to fully look at those. I apologize.
No,
I think you uploaded those yesterday and I didn't see it, so.
it's just the quick nuts and bolts as far as what hasn't been updated is the construction plans and stuff. It would be required to have construction plans to update.
So I think that was in regards to the height. Look at that. I have it pulled up.
I think the height in the septic,
Okay,
and then several of those would pour over into stormwater. Kelsey and Erica's comments as well.
okay. So this was the question was. In regards to construction plans or floor plans, the wastewater septic permit for the ag structure shows a capacity for 4 bedrooms. No bedrooms are shown on the construction plans. Built by Custom Homes by Corey, okay to build as an ag building, but if changed to residential use, there will be a requirement of a variance for the 15,000 square foot maximum building coverage for the subject property. Prior plans showed this as a guest house. So we're saying the comment was not addressed. We're just wanting to make sure that the floor plans of the second floor of the ag building, because we have the first floor, but I don't believe we have the second floor. So you had mentioned during our meeting, Jackie stated construction plans are recommended, but not required. Construction plans are not a requirement in the portal for the site plan. So they will be a requirement for the building permit.
Okay,
So if you want to wait to submit the construction plans until the building permit, then that just means that certain parts of my review, I'm not sure about Kelsey's review, would then be subject to those construction plans, for instance, height of the building.
yeah, and she asked for several calculations for concrete disposal, stockpiles and stuff. None of those could be calculated without construction plans either.
Okay. So at this point, you're not able or not wanting to put in the construction plans for
Well-
building it yet.
Well, yes, I mean, I don't know, I'm not a licensed architect, but no, I know Joe's construction plans are not finished and will not be finished until site plan approval is given.
Okay,
And I can continue the SIP review under the building permit. That's what. A SIP review goes under different permits in the county. That's why we're going to be creating our own stormwater permits so that there's no question on when the SIP review happens.
Okay,
So that will resolve that, but I usually review it whenever I can and whatever permit I'm tagged in, so.
is there any indication on my questions just to say or verbal, like write down, this is, we're not planning on having any bedrooms, or we're not planning on having the height of the building is proposed to be, I know you put max height, I think 40 or something.
so in that one I did, you asked about being the principal use or not.
Yes.
At this point, yes, it would be the principal use, which I think would allow the 40 feet.
Okay,
Yeah, so I updated that as well.
Okay.
The other thing was a stormwater calc.
Yeah.
Katie is still working on those, but you know, based on the majorities that we do, there's very little, you know, pre-post difference. But she does hope to have those done early next week.
Okay, great. Yeah, we don't typically get a site that has multiple drainage basins.
Yes,
So, something like that, so,
it's a large track.
yeah, so I need those shown. Thank you.
So as far as like floor plan, just like a mention of the floor plan indication, or is that just all subject to the building permit?
I mean, that's a question for Joe, but my understanding is the architect is not working on it and will not work on it until the site plan is approved.
Okay.
And so on the barn, then my question is, what are we waiting for our approval of a site plan?
Well, Todd just got me these comments yesterday, so all the items in red prior were what I was waiting on him to go ahead and address. It sounds like many of these have been revised, so I'll just take another look. There were some of the questions that were outstanding that I think maybe would be worth discussing at this meeting were the electric and water lines being installed under the road, whether those had already been installed.
To my knowledge, no, there's been no utilities installed.
Okay, and to install those, you're stating there would be no grading of any kind?
No, so when you install utility, typically you put a trench and, you know, it puts a little trench about 2 inches wide, you lay it and then it backfills itself. Or you ride over it with a roller, one of the two.
Into the existing gravel road bed is what you're planning on doing, or to the side?
Just immediately to the side.
Okay,
Regardless, that should be in your SWIP.
I think that would constitute some level of grading based on the definition.
All offsite utilities, any other work.
I mean, I've never been asked about electric lines or water lines or a septic line on a site
And
plan.
that's what I want to clarify here. Are you asking for that we need to get a grading permit to run essentially a lateral or a utility line to this location?
So we have in the plan set a grading plan, and what we're asking for is that everything be incorporated in that grading plan. And I think that Todd's applied for grading permits for several of these sites already corresponding to the buildings. And so what we're trying to understand is the extent of the water and electric lines that are going in is fairly significant, and it goes outside of the 12% road or 12% area.
So you say that we would have to, if it is outside of that 12%, so a slope greater than 12%, you're saying that we would need a variance on that?
If there's grading outside of the 12% slope area, that would require a variance.
I just want to say it's very standard to include utilities within your disturbed area calculation for a site. It's what I always look for on sites. If for some reason I missed it in the past, then I missed it, but almost all sites, I'm looking at what utilities you're running to the site and asking that to be included in the disturbed area calculation.
And I can understand the disturbed area,
Okay.
right? That concept I can understand. What I'm trying to get my head around is the utility lines and the need for a variance outside of the 12%.
I know there is some language in there about utilities and stuff being, you know, waived and that kind of stuff. I mean, could you elaborate on that at all, or?
Sure. Yeah, so under 825, there's an exception for driveways, utilities, and construction for a single family residence. So it doesn't allow for agricultural building, guest house, other types of development. It's specific to single family dwelling construction.
And so then this requirement regarding the lines don't apply to the homes.
If they were designated as single family residences and this was part of the construction, this is the only way, best way to get to them. And you couldn't construct the same, it could apply.
Okay. I guess my concern there, Jackie, I don't want to nitpick on this, but my concern there is you just got, if it is a single family residence, if this is the only way you get it out there, then the exception could apply, I guess.
Yep.
I
So I can elaborate a bit more. So based on your lots of record, if you have more buildable area in one location than another, and you're choosing to go to the other location that would require you to go through steeper slopes, we would say that exception applies to build, say, closer to where the buildable area is. So it's not just a carte blanche, I get to put my house anywhere on the lot, and I get the exception because that's what it says. It says to construct the same, or if there's no other buildable area on the site, so you have to pick the most amenable area for the construction.
Okay.
Yeah, I can pull it up too. This is 825-5A.
Okay, I'm sorry, could you put that back up?
Sure. Sorry.
And help me right now, because as I read that, where's the limitation to residential, single family residential? Okay. Thank you. And so when we talk about it, what, I guess what else on the ag law?
Was there anything, Todd, that you? Oh, otherwise had a question.
Believe everything else was either revised or except for the stuff that have to do with construction plans. On the overall road thing, due to the length of this and the scale, if we labeled or showed utility lines, the slope lines and the silt fence along the road, it would just be a black object. So we did put a standard detail of what we would anticipate being done. It's on at the top right of the first page.
So these are the revised plans.
These are the revised plans that we got yesterday. If you can, not all of us have, it doesn't notify you always that an attachment was added.
Oh,
So
okay.
you can leave us a comment in the future. We'll get to
Or I
it.
get it, I forget like $50. I just get reassigned to all of Erica's stuff yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
So I just didn't even,
Yeah, yeah.
it's a
that's-
lot yesterday.
Yeah, or an email outside of the system to
Yeah.
just say, hey, I've gotten it. So this is your trench and the typical for the utilities that we wanted to show us.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's say 4 foot. Mhm. That's helpful. So I think Todd, you and I talked about before, just as we're doing iterations of these, we're just going back through the same ordinance language, making sure everything is addressed, but it looks like we're coming down in the number of comments, at least on planning side. Looks like you've revised a good number of these, so we'll take a look, and if there's anything remaining, we will let you know
Thank you.
regarding that. I'm not sure how you would like to handle the just what we've discussed so far, so.
Obviously, if the road is coming out, we would have to revise that now because it is shown as the new road
Okay.
staying.
Yes. And this is just the site plan for this lot of record that we're showing, the Chumley North.
We actually updated all of them as well, or at least made some modifications based on your comments. We added some of the comments to the other lots. Yes.
Okay. But for the purposes of this site plan record, SIT 22-12, if we were able to issue approval, it would be specific to what we're looking at here. I have not done a full review. I mean, I think I've given you comments on the building. You're saying you addressed those on the guest house.
So we did the vast majority of them. Yes. I mean, we went through and revised it all as if everyone was going through the same site plan approval.
Okay, so then a question for your team is, are you phasing this approval? Do you want, the ag barn first? Do you want us to look at everything for site plan approval at once?
Well, I think in the first meeting, at least as I was in with you guys, we had the barn, the ag barn. And in that discussion, it was then asked, we want the entire layout for what we're gonna do on the entire property, and that's why we put all of this other stuff in. I mean, so we worked based off of what we were instructed from you as to supply to you. I mean, I'm at a loss a little bit as to how to proceed, and that's why I wanted to have this, is because, for a long time there, these things were just stopped and we couldn't tell how to proceed.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I'll just ask, do you need all of the other? I guess, what all do we need for the barn? Because initially we were told we needed to have a whole layout done.
Yeah, I think on the legal lot of record, you've got all the existing and proposed structures shown. I just want to make it clear that even though you're showing this main vacation home on the first page under SIT 22-12, we would not be approving the main vacation home and approving this site plan. But I do think if you want to also hash out the guest house, we've provided comments, and I don't think you've responded to the Excel sheet of those comments.
We did not respond to them formally in that, but we did try to update the plan set accordingly.
Okay. Okay. So, to answer your question, I mean, we can look at this just from the viewpoint of the ag barn. And if we wanted to call these future, and then in the next subsequent site plan, call them, this is what we want now. I think that would be amenable.
And so I just want to make sure that I got this, when you say future, then would we be able to proceed with getting site plan approval for the barn? And going down the road to get construction permit
For the barn, yeah. That's
Without-
what your goal is.
addressing those future.
If that's the way you would like to proceed, I think we can handle that. We do that.
So you say you think, why would we not be able to?
Did I just now say I think?
Yeah, you said you think we can't. What makes you just think, why can't we get our permit for the barn?
Well, the permit for the barn has been applied for, but I don't believe the construction plans have been updated. So I just want to make sure that some of the leftover things that Todd is saying have not been addressed or that we need to, you know, apply for anything further.
Need to be addressed.
The height of the ag barn, the floor plans of the ag barn, the sewer, water or septic water and electric lines going in.
You have the septic on you. You have the septic, right?
It's, yeah, everything's shown on there.
Okay.
But the way we're looking at these by site plan application, which I understand you have most all of them in as site plans, maybe with some modification that we've talked about more recently. Todd and I talked about some modifications happening potentially. That we would be reviewing those under those site plans for those structures, but also by lot of record. So I think we've made it clear on which lots are lots of record. Todd's pretty clearly showing those with the bold lines. So each site plan we're looking at the, you know, SIT 2212 is specific to the ag barn and a lot of record. So if he wants to put the ag barn, everything we need meets everything that we're asking. And then put future as a future structure down here, and there's no other things for us to review, then we can proceed.
So if we were to add a second one, that's a single family residence, would that alleviate the need for the variances for the electric water lines?
We'd be able to review that in light of that language, yeah. If that were proposed first, you mean?
Yeah, or simultaneously, or
Any other questions on the ag barn?
so if he does just the ag barn, we would need the variances for the utilities. Could you do that simultaneously with the grading permit and replace the road, or do you have to do it after the road is removed, replaced and approved?
I don't think that, I think you could apply for another variance without compliance with the road at that time, but are you asking if the grading permit to remove the road requires a variance?
Well, no, so for the ag barn, to build the ag barn, step one is the grading permit. Because we're right, road,
Okay,
but can we apply for the variances at the same time, or does that have to be complete before you can apply for the utility variances?
I wouldn't think it needed to be complete. They seem like two separate requests. Would be my opinion. Okay. Concur.
Because I would imagine that road would take some time with stabilization and stuff to get fully approved.
Now, until the road is removed and stabilized, are you asking if I can issue building permits?
No, I know you can't. Yes, I understand you can't do that. Yes, but you could start the variance process.
Okay.
Again, I know this is a point of contention between Lee, David and I. But the position of the planning department is we would have to apply for those variances, even though this isn't, everybody recognizes this is an ag barn. So agricultural use.
Yes, well, we're waiting on the floor plan still to ensure that it's agricultural use as well.
But assuming that it is an agricultural use. It is the planning department, the county's position that we have to apply for those variances despite what language of paragraph 7 of the agreement said.
That would be correct.
Are you inclined to say if planning staff would support those variances?
I think we'll just look at the complete application when you submit it. I don't believe there's a grading permit for the road itself, so you would have to apply for that. For the new road segment.
Yes,
Right.
Yeah, new
Just as
permit.
part of with keeping the spreadsheet updated.
Can you say that you lost me there, Jackie? I'm sorry.
There's, so I've put together all of Mr. Huff's applications as an open gov and labeled them. And so under grading permit, if you look at all the grading permits that have been submitted, I don't believe any of them apply to the new road. So my comment to Todd was that if that's an earlier step, then he will have to, or someone will have to make that application in the open gov system to remove the road.
Okay, the 350 feet.
Yes. And I'm sorry, I don't know if I got your name,
Jeff,
Jeff.
nice to meet you.
Hi, Jackie.
Jackie,
Yes,
great to meet you.
and what was your, what's your role in all of these?
Associate at Taft with Jewel.
Okay, all right, thanks. I didn't know if you were architect or, okay, all right, okay. All right, thank you. And this is Tammy and Kelsey. Kelsey was stormwater and Tammy's the assistant director with planning.
Nice to meet you.
Okay.
All right, Todd, is there anything else that we need clarified on the barn?
No, the three things that are needed. As well as them approving this revisions was basically the only 4 steps that I see there.
Then if we can turn to the gate, if that's possible.
The main gate.
Yes.
Okay.
I am, and this is just me, I'm a little bit confused on that stop switch. I think that it was called, was it called an accessory use? I can't remember what it was. But we're talking about an 80 square foot guard house on that gate, right?
I think it was roughly 8 by 10. Don't quote me on that. And then there was 2 by 2 columns, I believe, on each, or 1 on each end.
So your question is what's needed?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So as far as the main gate goes, we've listed some items that were missing on the site plan, just under chapter 815. This site is partially located on the property that has the main vacation home. So one of the questions that we had is, are you planning on combining these for planning and zoning purposes? Since there's an overlap of lots, or is this home gonna be redesigned?
Well, I think the first thing you would want to do is take a look at the original site plan that was put in prior to the old road. I think it was exhibit 10 or something of that of your plan. So it was located on a different area and I don't remember if it, I don't think it overlapped that boundary because it contemplated the existing road to still be the one utilized.
So you're saying that this is going to be revised to not have a encroachment on this lot?
What I'm saying is, I can't remember exactly what it is, but that one shows the new road. We had put in a site plan application or for review of a prior design, which contemplated the old road. And I don't recall whether or not it straddled the line.
Okay. This is the only version of site plan that I have on this one, I think, just as version 1, and it's this version here. And so we don't have the lot boundaries, so I've left some notes on what we need to get this in better shape. So,
But if we could go back to,
Pre-portal, you had the designs.
well, yeah, I mean, that was I think we got, I mean, there, you had because they were in your exhibit.
Yeah.
for the plan.
I know you're talking about the schematics, more of like the architectural, like of the main,
But it was a site plan
Comment on the.
yeah,
for that parcel.
There's not one in this packet. Because it's just for the ag barn,
You don't have the.
not what we know.
I just don't know whether or not that original site plan
showed an encroachment, okay.
on that property, because I'm just reacting to your comments there. It sounds like if that would change your interpretation there, correct?
I think it's something that needs to be resolved, yes, but, I think that the comments specific to the main gate.
What was the comments on this?
So this is uploaded as well. It's the same Excel spreadsheet that I gave under SIT 22-12. But there's a tab in here called main gate SIT 22-24. And also residential permit R-22-487. So I'm asking for the name and address of the owner and developer on the plans, the location of the project by public way township section. The plot plan only shows the structure itself and no zoom out of the property in relation to accessibility to the road. Site layout, lot size, setbacks, vehicle access, parking, loading, any visible cars, floodplain, wetlands. This is just typical language. If there's needed to be any kind of parking plan, or if you were showing some sort of parking, there was
I
some,
think there was some existing gravel, yeah.
I didn't know if that was going to be improved, or if that's something that's just going to stay what it is.
So do I think to Jules' plan or talk about the previous one, I do think that there was one that showed it not on the property line. But then it was still an issue because it was in the setback of its own parcel.
Okay,
And I believe we talked about either doing a type E to go around it or doing the combined thing.
okay,
I do believe that was discussed before,
okay.
but I guess to answer his question, so if it is completely off of that lot, does it affect anything with the main gate if it's not on the lot?
No, I don't believe so. I think we're pretty close on this one. Just waiting for these edits to be made.
There's something about the size of it, Doug.
Um,
Well, I think you took it out on the last time, the part.
the last plan, I think all we have is more or less a standard. If you zoom in, just
No,
2 pillars and an actual
you
gate.
have
that
the
goes across.
gatehouse out, but my question is, why is the gatehouse out?
We discussed that.
Well, I'm bringing it up now because I called the building department and said it was not the size to be an accessory building. It was smaller than the ordinance of, what was it, 720 square feet, and it's 80.
Mhm.
So I called the building department, said you don't need a permit for it.
Okay,
So then I'm trying to understand then why we don't have the gatehouse. It's because we have to have a permit for it. It's in these comments somewhere.
So I guess what he's asking is,
does it require a building permit?
why does it trigger? Yes.
And you had a conversation with the building
Yeah,
committee?
I follow it. It's less than your ordinance of square footage.
Mhm. It's 120 square feet or permanent foundation, but I can talk to him as well, and just verify whether you need to go through building for a permit or just planning.
We can still have a permanent foundation be smaller than that square footage. It's not considered an accessory building, correct?
So they're going off of a different ordinance than what we go off of, but ours.
I'm just trying to get a site plan. You guys made a comment that it was an accessory building.
Mhm.
And I'm trying to understand where you came up with the accessory building on such a small building.
So it says, the planning version of a building permit, if you will, or the permit that goes along with a building permit, an improvement location permit shall not be required for the following activities. Structures that contain less than 120 square feet of floor area and that are not on permanent foundation. So in this case, it's the building itself is less than 120 square feet, but it is on permanent foundation.
Okay.
And I can check again with the building department, or I don't know, was there discussion that no, you do not need a permit, even though I think there was some discussion of whether someone would actually be inside employed in that structure?
Which they're not.
Okay. Would someone be inhabiting that structure or sitting in there? It's just a for show building
Yeah.
that's gonna be in there. Okay,
Keep the garden stuff in, hosed, water
okay,
outside the gate, probably.
okay.
So you'd have to show both sides of the gate, then if it's a permanent foundation.
What's that?
So the new one you did, do you show the,
No, Shaggy and I, in one of our meetings, discussed what we could possibly do to not trigger this. And we talked about just going back to just a standard gate.
Fence.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So if you wanna move it back to the other way, I don't. You can make it a fence, cause you were asking if you didn't need a permit or site plan review,
Yes.
okay. But if you want a guardhouse, permanent foundation. We also talked about like. If you were gonna put a solar panel on it to operate it, still needs an electrical permit, and things like that.
I'd still probably need electrical because I'm having lights on the other post. Still have to have lighting. Electrical.
But that was more in relation to setback. This one's not gonna have any issues with
Right,
setback.
yes.
I think he was also wanting a gate.
There's 2 more gates, yeah.
Like up here and then. I think there was another location for the gate, yeah.
But Todd, help me out because the other one doesn't have a barn on it now, then I don't have to have that far off the road.
The one that was,
Scroll up.
I don't think it's gonna show up on here.
So like here, when you have the
No,
original.
it's
part?
gonna be one above that.
Or this one here,
Oh,
you had it too close to this front
okay,
property line here was, and it was a setback issue of.
okay. So just to loop back on this main gate. We can question the building department. I think you do have a permit application. R 22-487, we can ask if the building department's going to require a permit based on,
Is that for the gate?
yeah.
I called them and said I did because it's
Okay.
120 feet.
Then if we say we can stop that application because it's no longer needed. Then you would just apply for the improvement location permit through planning for the gate. And then once you have site plan approval, that would proceed. As long as other issues are resolved.
Okay, and with the other issues that are resolved. With that, despite the fact that it is on the front of that property prior to the new road area. You guys want that new road stretch to be taken out or repaired prior to this application for the main gate?
Prior to the permit application, I mean, prior to the permit application being issued, you can apply for permits.
Then you can ask anything you want.
Do you have anything else on this gate?
No,
And are there hangups on the other gates? I've been focused on this one. Through this process, do we?
The other one where I used to have the barn on the first one, because there was a barn, it had to be moved off of it, but now that the barn's not there, I don't think I need the additional feet from the property line. I think the other gates need to be brought up on the distance from the property line. Should be 2 more gates.
Okay.
But then we talked about by moving them out further, then it's gonna take more destruction or grading to put up extra fencing. So I guess the key is how far from the property line can I be? I'm not on the road frontage. It's on the easement. But I remember the where the one gate was, it had to be further out because there was a barn there, but now that there's not a barn, then where can the gates go?
I'm gonna try and find the
Does that make sense?
older site plans, it does. I just. Be helpful to look at the same thing. So you, Jewel, you thought it was exhibit 10, but
9 or 10, but that's on that first. I think
that's it.
this one?
Hmm.
Okay. Oops. And this one, you're showing a 65-foot distance, but that you're asking to move closer, is that the question?
Which one is that one again?
This was near the,
original barn.
oh, this,
Yes, because we got to be off because of the distance, because there was a barn, there was a different ordinance that pushed it back. But now the barn's not there, then what is the distance from that property line that it needs to be? Does that make sense?
yeah, so.
That affect the other one too. It's the same for the second and for both of the easements.
So I don't think that the gate or the fence, however we were classifying it, was needing to meet a certain setback because of the other structures on that lot. It's a separate structure. It was more about whether you were going to have it be meeting the definition of needing an improvement location permit. So it says that lot and yard improvements such as fences, do not require a permit, so if you could.
There's something for an ag barn, because it was an ag barn, the fence has to be further back.
Okay.
Because there is an ag facility, something about, because of the equipment coming out, you had to push the gate back further from the property line.
I'm not, yeah, I'm.
That's
not-
why that one was showing further back.
But you would
That's
like to
what came
put
up
it
last time.
closer. Yeah,
Well,
there's,
Yes, because my understanding was that the barn wasn't there, that you don't have to push it back. There was some rule that you had.
okay. So if you were to just have this site plan gate. So I guess, can you describe what this gate looks like? Is it just two posts and like something to raise and lower a bar, or what is it?
Did they be opening and closing? You have 2 posts.
Okay,
Are they swing posts?
Yeah.
So I think.
More like a
That one,
fence.
those the other ones will be posts,
okay,
but would have security and lights probably.
okay. Is there gonna be like a masonry big block, or is it just gonna be like
Gate post,
support structures, gate posts?
nice gate post.
Okay. So I think if we could just come to terms that that is a fence, then it doesn't need to get an improvement location permit
But I don't think it has to be that 65 feet back now,
to
right?
be exempt.
That's what I'm getting at is.
Yeah. So it not only does it say it doesn't need an ILP, there's also a section under 804. So yard, building setback and open space exceptions. So it says that the following structures or facilities shall be allowed to be constructed in any yard. Driveways, curbs, sidewalks, fences, walls, hedges, flagpoles, non-permanent. So this is the list. So if you're just building a fence, then I don't think that you need to meet the setback. But you do need it on your property.
Right, okay. I think that 65 feet was because of the barn.
Okay. We have Kelsey here. Did you have any other questions for her?
No, I think everything was.
Okay.
Was addressed except for that stuff relating to. The construction plans, the storage calculations, and as of right now, we are not showing any ditches or, well, for the new road, the culverts, because it's on a ridge, culverts
Yeah.
don't really apply much.
Mhm.
But as we currently do not show any ditches
Okay,
on it.
that's fine. We usually ask for private drives, so.
But if you want to make comments or recommendations, we'll definitely take a look at it.
So you're paving, are you paving the entire thing to that ag structure?
Correct.
Okay, will you be doing any excavation or like, what are you doing for the sub base or just gonna,
Put it on top of what's there now.
okay,
Yes.
okay, that. It's helping me envision what it's going to look like as far as. You know, if you would need to excavate and redo the sub base and all that, I think it would just be a bigger project.
Yes. That would be considerable there.
Thanks for clarifying that. Yeah, I'll have to do another review, looking at your revisions and everything, so I can look at that point.
Sure.
Talk about egg barn, main gate, second gate, fence.
And I just want to ask one more question on the main gate, sorry, and I'll move on. I know that I'm slowing this down. That was out of 814, correct?
Yes, I referenced 814, yes.
And then prior to February of last year, how did that, do you recall how that ordinance read regarding that exception? Was that part of the revision?
We haven't changed 814. I think you're thinking of 815 has changed, but 814 was last adopted. February 23rd, 2022. I believe the changes, I can give you the copy before that if you'd like.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe that changed what we're talking about, but I can do that.
Before you move off the gates and the fences,
Okay.
are there any slope issues with the proposed
With
Gates?
with the gates?
I don't think so. I think.
They're all well,
Yeah,
man.
we're all very.
Not with this one. I think this one's pretty flat as
Yeah.
well. Yeah,
Yeah, that was only the 65-foot back setback. So Jewel, help me understand. So a lot of these go back before these rules were changed. Am I supposed to follow the old rules or the new rules?
That's what I'm gonna be looking at.
Because
That's why I want to understand what.
all these rules are new rules that I'm seeing there after that 65-foot setback, but I know if we had it, that's why we did it. So I don't know, Todd, what rules are you following?
I am following the comments that are put in front of me.
Okay, that's a good answer. So I go back to you, Joel, saying,
So I
what
want,
legally do I have to follow?
that's why I want to take a look at what Karen said.
so you're just chapter 814, you want the prior copy?
Right, because that talked about, and that was specific to the gate, right? Just.
Yep.
What the language was. Then if we can move then. To, well, Todd, which other area is the most?
It seems like the most other, I mean, we got the one accessory building to the north, but. I mean, you got no issues there except for the size of the barn if he decides to build the accessory structure to the northwest there. I mean, you have plenty of flat space for I mean, there's no setback issues. I mean, Chumley South would seem to be. You know, as far as being allowed to build there and run the septic line up the hill, would probably be the next biggest question.
And that's on SIT 22.
SIT 22-13. And I think we've discussed too that like. Calling, if it's the only structure. So house number 2, you have labeled as a guest house, and house number 3 have labeled as a guest house. House number 2 has to be an accessory to a residence.
Yes, you made that in the comments, yes.
And then house number 3 is not accessory to anything.
Where is that in the ordinance? Because we can't find that, or Joel couldn't find it.
Okay. Accessory building containing a lodging unit with or without kitchen facilities needs to house occasional visitors or non-paying guests of the occupants of a dwelling unit on the same site.
So in the definitions.
Yes.
What's the date on that one?
Chapter 802, 10/6/2021.
And what was the date of our first one?
I'm not sure. I don't have that list in front of me.
So what's the different language of the guest house from the previous? Is there a change?
This,
Is that the
to
same?
my knowledge, has not changed, but I can send Jewel the prior version if you want.
You had a comment why? Right there, it's not saying that you can't have a barn and a guest house on the same parts. That's why I'm trying to connect the dots here. So they're calling a guest home an accessory building. Was that when I first applied, calling it an accessory building? Talked about this years ago. Same meeting, same people. They questioned and disagreed. You remember?
There was a question about if you can have more than one guest house on a lot.
I'm still
think-
trying to understand where it says you can't have a barn and a guest house on the same parcel.
Labeling in a guest house assumes that there is another dwelling unit on the same site. So we're saying that there's a principal dwelling unit on the same site as a guest house. In which case you have an ag structure and a guest house and no principal dwelling unit on the same site.
Where does it say you have to have a principal?
It says occupants of a dwelling unit on the same site. And that would just be as simple as relabeling it to just say single family residence.
But it didn't say that. And that's where Joe, you got a question on that before?
Yeah.
So what I'm confused on, if it's a site, is a site a partial? It's the same site. So I'm trying to understand how you guys try to do a common lot area and say it's the same site, but when it comes down to a definition of this. Then it's just not a partial, because I do have a home site on the site. So I'm trying to understand how you claim one time a site plan is just a partial. Yet you try to come back and say a large common lot area is the same site. So it's almost like you conflict. So you got to pick one way or another and they're conflicting. So I'm confused on what is the same site versus a partial.
So I think what Joe's trying to say is if you are calling this a common lot development, as this, you're taking all the parcels together. If there's a single family residence somewhere on that common lot, would that count as the SFR for the guest house?
And I think that goes to what we were looking at, because that single family residence that up there by the new road or whatever, that was considered to be the main residential, that would be the dwelling unit, right?
Here,
Right there. And then when you look at the two guest house, the barn and the other lot on top, that would comprise the 4 accessory buildings we could have on a single site, correct?
So the common plan for development was used to help with the SWIP. So that's the stormwater pollution prevention plan.
And that's, yeah,
The space disturbance of all of the areas combined, how much area are you disturbing? So that's helping us to determine the grading plan, the SWIP review, and being compliant with the state. Our site plans are based on legal lots of record, which we've, I think, provided, and Steve Smith has also provided the accurate boundaries of each one of these legal lots of record. So when I'm looking at site plan review, I'm looking at legal lot of record boundaries. And so if you have,
But it doesn't say. Where is in the ordinance that a site plan is a partial?
so under
We talked about this earlier.
we're following the residential
Not in a meeting here, I don't believe.
review of the site plan and
Yeah, the review of the site plan would be the
the
whole.
site layout of the project, including the location, lot size, arrangement, capacity of the area used for yards, setbacks, lot boundaries, and all buildings, including accessory structures. So lot boundaries, your deed, your lot boundaries, your legal descriptions, how many lots do you have?
Okay, I guess I'm struggling with that and the definition of site.
In the definition of, sorry,
Site in the ordinance,
okay,
because in the ordinance itself defines a site is the entire area included in the legal description of a parcel or as parcels of land on which development has been proposed or is being constructed, controlled area or runoff aggregate. So that's essentially what we're talking about, the SWIP plan. And so the definition within the ordinance itself contemplates more than one parcel as a site. Right?
under that definition,
Yeah, and that's the ordinance definition.
yeah.
Um,
We're looking at, well, to go to another definition, there's a legal lot of record or lot of record. Is what we're often referring to.
right, but when we go, I'm tying that back to guest house.
Yes,
Now Joe, you sparked my memory a little bit. I'm getting old. I had my 50th birthday this year, so it's been a little slower to
It
me.
gets worse.
When we look at guest house, it's an accessory building containing a lodging unit within or without, with or without a kitchen, facilities used to house occasional visitors and non-paying guests of the occupants of a dwelling unit on the same site. And so when we look at guest house, the way the guest house is defined, it uses the language that is specifically defined within your ordinance as site, which contemplates more than one parcel. And it's the entire area of development. Get rid of some of your sign.
I don't
Get
put
some
sign.
of your sign up.
our area included in the legal description of the parcel of land on which development has been proposed or is being constructed. So the legal description of the Chumley North parcel is separate, right? It has its own deed.
Yeah, but I mean, the definition itself contemplates multiple parcels.
That's.
Plural of land on which development is.
But the development is on one parcel, right? The development itself is not straddling two parcels. That's how I,
But it's not singling it out. It's calling it out as a site, which includes all partials. That's the clearer definition that makes more sense.
I mean, because this definition of site would correspond with the common law of development concept of the site that you talk about with MS5 and the SWIP plans, is because you talk about the entire site, which is multiple parts of it. And so that, I mean, so just by going with the definitions in the ordinance, if the residence by the new road is the main dwelling unit, then within that site, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know this ordinance as well as you do. But within that unit, you are allowed 4 accessory buildings, correct? Or on that development, you're allowed 4 accessory units. Which a guest house is an accessory unit, so those 2, the barn. And then
Exempt. Barns are, they're exempt.
Yeah, so in the AgR zoning district, which is your zoning, it does not, I think you're referring to the accessory building condition under 802. And that does not apply to AgR. Oh,
But then we'll be dealing with the issue that you and I talked about the letter from Judy. Saying that she's.
They're gonna have to get the legal terminology on it. I think
so is this what you're talking about?
I agree with us.
Tool is this section here, condition 5. The following conditions apply to residential accessory buildings.
Yeah.
No more than 4 accessory buildings shall be erected on a lot. This provision shall not apply,
Today I got
which allow 15,000 square feet. So what is, I guess, if I could ask, what is the issue of relabeling those as just single family residences? Because I guess I'm not clear on that.
There's only one residence on that,
Yeah, I mean,
just us. I mean,
and if you're talking about future, probably down the road a ways. It could be the homes of Joe's boys, way down the road, but they're in high school.
Okay, so the idea is just that it's not other primary single family homes on a lot, you're wanting it to
the
be
main home would be our
the main
main home. If we
vacation.
still live there, then we have 2 guest homes,
Okay,
but it's only us living there.
yeah,
Is there a benefit to calling guest houses? For the term, and for the site plan, I mean, is there a benefit under the ordinance to calling the guest house?
Well, I think the biggest thing here is that they're not going to be utilized all the time. It's not going to be a residential area. And trying to accelerate the process of having
Cheaper for guest homes, we residential homes.
Oh,
Tax purposes.
now I got it.
I actually think it would be a quicker review if they were labeled as.
You know, I think tax wise, it's cheaper for guest homes versus residential.
Not aware of that.
Taxes on 3 residentials when you got 2 guest homes and 1 resident.
But you don't want to combine these for planning and zoning purposes, right?
Well, we might, that's what we talked about when you had that Chumley land that we were talking about, moving that one off the water. Do we combine them, redo the property lines? Did you guys talk about that?
The 15,000 square foot max would still apply though per legal lot of record, so keep that in mind.
Just for ag, but Agmar
Ag
is
would be
exempt.
exempt, but
So you have
Together.
50,000 square feet. For just accessory buildings, but not the main home.
it would be 15,000 all total. So we're just trying to, yeah, so guest house, accessory building, and I understand the ag.
Where's the guest home or where is the main house combined with that 15,000 square feet? I don't like ag, okay.
If you combined them, then they would count for the same parcel, if you combine the parcels.
Okay,
Because it says you combine them for planning and zoning purposes.
because the ag barn shouldn't be counted for the common lot of record too, right? It's exempt. Which we'll get into.
Not common lot of work, we're talking
Right.
about the.
Well, that's, we
Square
can
footage.
go over that here in a little bit, but that's what I'm trying to get to, my total square footage here, how they. Applying that, so. I think that's what needs to be determined, because. Jackie, go back to that Chumley, because I remember we talked about being off that water. moving that down and up on that hill. And then it would be in that one partial,
moving this
so like,
here.
yeah, and then leave that one where it won't be buildable. And just move that away from the water. And then I'd have the barn and just the guest home and that residential home there.
So it'd be barn, guest home,
No, we can make that one a resident.
a single family residence,
We could, yes.
and then nothing here.
And nothing in there, that way we're off the water. And the septic permit is right up there by the house and I don't have to. It's right up there on the edge. Does that
Right.
make sense? It's right there.
Yep.
And the only thing I want to put down below, maybe a pavilion, but I probably wouldn't because it's. Maybe nothing there. That's what we talked about to try to do. Instead of moving that line, 'cause for some reason that line is notoriously. Bounced around. Multiple times with confusion.
You're talking about the southern,
Yeah.
lot line.
Because of the township line and the, it was messed up a number of times. But that's what we had talked about, just to
So
keep
just,
those all together.
okay, yeah, so
And
if,
I wouldn't have to worry about what we're talking about this side, then it's not a big deal because we can count that as a residential home.
if you made this a single family residence,
Or the other one, vice versa.
okay,
And
And
then I
then-
build down there below on the water.
okay. This, if you wanted to combine this and this anyways, you could, that, if,
But remember, I can't, that area right there didn't have an acre. Was it an acre?
So that was a big area of contention a couple of years
Yeah.
ago. Was. If you have a continuous acre, you have to build there. You're not allowed to use the other portion. And I know there was some disagreement about that. And I don't know if that.
So we were just trying to get the waiver to move off that water to go there. And then we could fit those three there, then just not build down by the water.
oh, 0.48 acres, I see what you're saying,
And the other one's how big?
0.58 acres. Does that include the 200 foot setback? Or is that just applicable to septic?
So that's the one,
100 foot,
yeah, the 200 is the next one,
this one,
next to the septic there, go up.
that's just a foot.
Yeah,
This
there-
one,
that's the 200 for this, yeah, for the septic.
we don't have a two.
We have the 125.
125.
So that would be that one.
But you counted like this area here and the 12% as part of that.
That was, yeah, I would say that's
Okay.
the error.
Okay.
I'm assuming that's, yeah, it says 125 water setback, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, if you wanted to, in the next iteration, put this house here, we could take a look at that and review it.
Right.
Here,
That would solve all the questions on. The ambiguity in the site versus partial versus. Everything, and then we're just.
if you label one of these on this lot of record as a single family residence, I think that would help
Okay,
if this is staying as a guest house.
okay.
But yeah, we'd have to take a look at it just since it's new information, so.
Because I thought it was preferable. That we're off the water, back off the water, not right on the water. Because that one's tight right on the water.
I think there's multiple considerations, you know, not having the septic far away from the house is
Draw
preferable.
that one up on that. Okay,
Jackie.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you need from me?
I don't think so.
I think the one you want to go with. The common lot, the terminology of how they came up with the square footage, and why we're a large common lot of record. Is that your area?
The larger common plan of development.
Yes,
It's because you have contiguous parcels, you're the owner of all of them and developing them.
But that is through the IDEM.
That's only for the stormwater permitting. So,
So what, and I apologize, what language are you using to cite on that?
it's the state's construction stormwater general permit.
Have you guys researched that?
Yeah.
So we looked at that and we have questions each IDEM right now.
Okay,
Um,
Martin or Randy?
It's with whoever she.
Okay, no problem, no problem. Yeah,
So I'm not trying to dial them in,
what?
trying to dial them in.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We work with them pretty closely.
He's got to learn.
Okay. Yeah, and that's fine. Usually if someone in my jurisdiction contacts them, they'll sometimes bounce it to me and we can talk through it together. So if that does happen. Like,
I don't know that I can directly communicate with you with that one.
oh. Sorry.
So.
Okay, well. If we need to talk through that permitting with each other.
Okay.
And if you have questions to have, I'm happy to help. Okay.
Then yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
thanks.
Yeah, Kelsey.
Did you have any other questions?
Thank you. This is just.
Jim, anything else, Tom?
Well, I just want to make sure. Before. Joe goes spending a lot more money. To have this. Redesigned. To show the house up there at that new area.
I think we did it one time. I don't,
Well, I mean, there was an issue regarding,
well, the issue was that it didn't have enough continuous acres. But when you look at it, it makes more sense because you have to run the sewer line down and you're not right on the water where, you know, you're putting a road down by the water. It's, you know, you're further away from the lake.
I mean, I guess my thought is this, if planning determines that there's not a buildable acre, you can apply for a variance. Saying, hey, look, it's a better option than building down on the water. Would they consider supporting the variance if that's what it is needed?
Does it need to be a variance or can be a
I mean, I
waiver?
think that's an exception that's allowed. If you don't have the buildable. and then-
Well, that was the big disagreement last time that we never got resolved was that exact issue and it's still not resolved. That's why we're discussing it.
Well, I think.
Do you have to have a variance?
There's buildable, contiguous buildable is up here and you're utilizing it for other structures, right?
So yeah, so if it would take a variance, you know, would it be supported, I guess, or would it not need a variance, or is there just no possible?
Do you
way?
need a waiver?
I don't know that an exception. An exception based on the ordinance, if there's not other area that's contiguous 1 acre, so.
I remember that.
So this area here is 2.99 acres of less than 12%. So you have a guest house and an ag building taking that up. And then this area down here is 0.48 acres.
It's probably gonna get a little smaller when we take the setback out.
The language again.
Another one, Tom, Dick, down there, that's her.
0.58.
Acres doing.
Or existing parcel of workage for which there are no sites for the construction of a building, associated driveway and utilities that meet the requirements of this chapter. There's a site that meets the requirements of this chapter. It's just.
Well, I think that's why we were down there at the very point.
That's why we went back down to point, but I don't know, it just seems like you guys were fine being down there on the point. I just thought to the lake, staying away from the lake further back up
Mhm.
made more sense.
I think not disturbing this area for your septic line connection does make sense to have everything up here. But I just don't know that based on the ordinance, we can issue an exception for it,
An exception for,
building a single family residence right here.
right,
So you're saying that would need to be in there.
Right, but even
do a
if you
variance.
build down here, there's an issue of the septic line going through the greater than 12% slope as well, right?
but in that ordinance, but in that applied to the exception because it's. According to that ordinance you showed, there's an exception for that. So I don't think we need a variance for that. That's just a waiver.
If, I think Todd, you and I talked about, was there any possibility that this septic could be down here and meet the health department's requirements?
I do not believe it could because the 200
I tried,
setback.
yeah, I could because I tried with on the 200-foot setback.
Okay.
I tried.
Because it must be. I mean, it's, you
Is
have
it
that,
there?
yeah, you have that table. That's about it.
So I got as close as I could, Jackie, with him. And the place we have is the closest point. So that wouldn't need a variance because it meets the exception for the utilities. So that's why I'm kind of scratching my head on the 12% when you say you have to have a variance. I'm not so sure you do because your ordinance reads that even for utilities, I can't get them in on my property, so I have a septic field, then I should get an exception to get down there to my home. And that's why I was just saying, hey, if it's better to be off the water to have all that congestion, is it better up here where the septic field is, or?
Yeah, I could,
Either way, but
I could see the exception applying to this legal lot of record. But I'm still not sure, even if it is a better design, it's just.
yeah, that was just our offering to you guys to work with you. Do you want us off the water or not? To me, it doesn't matter.
Right, but if I'm saying it requires a variance, then I guess.
Then a
it's not.
variance. Yeah, I don't know if the variance, you guys want us to do that or not.
Do you think a good case could be made in front of the board? You know, we agree with the Huffs that this is a better building site with relation to the water and erosion, but we would support the variance of moving the house up the hill.
I think a case could be made to that effect. I don't know if there's wiggle room in this septic system location. I mean, it's pretty much smack dab in the middle of here.
We'd probably have to, yeah, have health department out there, see if you can move it to the
It's pretty
northwest.
tight on the 12% right there. It's right on the line, see it?
Yeah, so I think a case could be made to move it up here. And then if you called this a single family residence, we wouldn't have the issue of the guest home and the,
That way. But I think the septic, if we stay below, we shouldn't have to get a variance because it already meets the exception. According to your language, then we. That's why I was confused earlier when you were saying that if you go over 12% from your septic and your utilities, you have to get a variance, but I don't understand that when it calls out that you get an exception if you don't meet the.
for a single family residence, yes. If this is gonna be relabeled as a single family residence, then I think we could review it in that light, yes.
And
So
then
going-
just combine that property line with the other Chelmsford portion.
You could do that by deed. You wouldn't even have to do a survey. You could do that. But it does count towards your total
Yeah, you would.
square footage.
You don't.
Then I can't get that. You know, no. But then that's where we go back up here, when you're saying you have to have a residence for that property, which we disagree because it doesn't read that way. So I don't, that's where you gotta you gotta figure that one out to get the true understanding of that, because the worst case scenario, then I take away that property line and joining up with the other one, right, Jackie? The one way up on the north.
I still think you'll have an issue with that 15,000 square foot. You're up against it pretty close for a lot of these, so.
for that partial, that would only be a guest home and a main home.
Mm.
Right?
Yep,
If you don't count the barn, so I'd only have a home and a guest home.
and then any pavilions,
I don't have any on there. I think we might have had one.
this one is here,
Where was that one?
where you're,
Oh, yeah. Okay,
But that one's just a pavilion.
so if a pavilion, if it has a roof, it's an accessory building? Is that right? All right,
yes,
And there's some other rules that apply to that too, I believe.
what are those?
Height is height off the ground, one as well.
if it,
No.
if it needs an improvement location permit, it's likely gonna classify as an accessory structure that's gonna count towards your total square footage. So it's not based on accessory structure. I think we're getting a little confused on the accessory structure versus just the total limitation. So,
But a main home would not be counting as an accessory structure.
But it still counts towards your total square footage.
Where's it
its
say?
maximum lot coverage is 15,000 square feet. And we determined that did not mean roadways.
What year was that in place?
This was revised in 2020.
Okay, well, then I argue that I put these in before that. So that goes back to you, Jewel. I applied for these before these zoning rules were made. Making that point,
Yeah. I can
but
send,
I don't know what they were before either.
I will just send you. Okay. So
Do you have everything?
just to clarify, guest house is an accessory building containing a lodging unit with or without kitchen facilities used to house occasional visitors or non-paying guests of the occupants of a dwelling unit on the same site. We're saying that accessory building is defined as a subordinate building or structure customarily incidental to and located on the same lot with the principal building.
So you don't count the principal building or the Agmar.
That is a principal building, but it's not a dwelling unit unless you're putting a dwelling unit in it. Lot is defined as a tract, plot, or portion of a subdivision or other parcel of land, the boundaries of which have been established by some instrument of record that is intended as a unit for the purpose, whether immediate or future, of transfer of ownership of building or development. So again, coming back to legal law of record versus site. I think it's in your best interest to see these as lots and individual lots. It's just the SWIP conversation in which we're continuing to talk about them as parcels.
I don't want to say debate definitions. I think what you're trying to say, like, is, because an accessory building has this definition where it's on the same lot, right, you should consider it on the same. Right? I guess I would push back on you a little bit with that. Look at the definition of accessory building. It is not a shall, it is not a, is not a will, it is a structure that is customarily located on the same lot. Site has specific meaning in this ordinance, and guest house specifically chooses not to use the definition of lot, which has a meaning in this ordinance. It specifically chose to define the term site. So that's my concern, and that's the circle.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
Okay. Do you have anything else?
I just have one question. Is there anything in the ordinance about you know, people ask for their plans, you know, is there a timeline as far as if they have future plans for a property that, you know, needs to be shown or has to be shown or anything?
Let me repeat back the question. Are you saying, is there a timeline? As in, if I approved a site plan that said future house and then the ordinance changed and didn't allow that future house, if we would still grant that approval? Or are you saying you may have something on the site that's like 30 years down the line, but you don't want to show it today?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, it's up to you. If you show future development on a site now, and we can kind of look at that now, it's probably to your benefit if it's in the next 5 or so years, I would say. If it's beyond that, you could come back for later site plan approval, and that's true for any case.
Okay.
I guess we're redoing the zoning process and should have a new one by next year, so that may have an.
What's the impact on that?
Well, we don't know. I mean, until it's adopted, we don't know if it will affect any.
So- If you apply for something in the current zoning timeframe, shouldn't it be grandfathered in that timeframe?
I think what David is saying is if we are not showing something that we have in mind, it's gonna be coming down the road, if this new ordinance would eliminate that use, but we're not able to do it now.
I understand that, but I'm
Is that
saying,
what you're saying, David?
I understand what he's saying there. My question is, if you already had plans submitted to get a site plan approval to get things going, but then they change on you, shouldn't you be grandfather claused in the current ones that you put in?
Sorry.
That-
Yeah, that's the way we approach it. I'm just saying,
But that's not how I'm being treated.
well,
You're treating me with the new ordinances.
I think you're assuming that the way the ordinance reads today is the way it read back when. I think Chill's gonna be looking for those
Yes,
previous year's ordinances, and you
Right.
may find that they're virtually identical. There's no change.
that's what I was asking. Yeah, and I don't disagree with you. I just didn't
But
know.
you're right, though, the ordinance in effect, when you apply for whatever, it's the.
But I know the one affected me greatly because I applied at least 2 or 3 months before they made the one ordinance, which was what? On the site plan?
Well, the last main revision was the site plan last April, yes,
And what was that ordinance?
8/15.
No, but what did that entail?
That was a pretty large change, but I think that also included that the whole architect is no longer on there, that it's gotta be.
No, there's some big, what was the big deal on that one?
You also have the SWIP.
Well, they really had no site plan review beforehand, and then they completely added site plan review for residential. I mean, it was a huge chapter.
Which you're
Addition.
making me follow that now. That's what I'm trying to understand. How? Then when I was applying for these, did I fall under the new ordinances and wasn't treated like the old ordinances? That's all I'm asking.
That's what our federal action.
Okay,
Yeah, we'd be happy to send you the prior version of 8/15 if you don't have it. You can look.
Sure,
at it.
yeah. I just don't know what they said, but I just know that there was concerns or issues on our side when we saw that. That was clearly showing that we were treated different.
There was a site plan requirement for a residential beforehand. I think when you applied for building permits and didn't have construction plans and requested site plan approval, that's what we are.
But I couldn't go get building permits because I had to get a site plan approval first.
You could do it at the same time as the building permit approval, but you did not have construction plans. So in order to move forward, you wanted site plan approval, and that's what we're trying to give you at this point. If you had both, a lot of people apply with construction plans and site plans at the same time.
Well, I wasn't doing my construction plans because I was being denied all over the place for my site locations I was trying to build, so.
Sure.
I couldn't get construction plans because I kept moving around over it. Because you were applying these rules, and that's what I'm saying. Some of these rules were applied to my wife and I after what we had already applied for, then clearly it shows the new rules were then being applied to us that we were treated different. And it clearly shows that. And I know we got a document, and I just don't know why it happened that way.
Yeah, I don't believe that you've been treated differently, but we'll work with you the best we can. Of course, this type of meeting, we don't
No, I'm just
always
saying,
have with everybody. We try to just provide comments via the portal and we don't always meet with people. So we're trying to help you through this the best we can and make sure you don't have any questions.
no, I'm just trying to wonder why I was stopped and stopped and stopped and stopped. Because when I talked to a lot of other people, I'm the only one that's ever been stopped so many times. So I appreciate you trying to get us through again. Again, this is the 4th or 5th time.
Mhm.
And we've been trying to apply and go by with whatever you give us every time, which I use Todd, who's been in this county forever. I had an architect that built in this county for many years, and for me to be here this long time later, still doing this is, you know, when you stop, then that's, to us, that's a different change, treated differently. So that's why, where we are. So, but I do appreciate it.
Todd, do you have anything?
No, I'm good.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Your site plan showed repeating. Was there any discussion?
Oh, yeah.
Any slope areas?
So Jackie's comments, said to show them on the plan, and we showed them, and her comment is that they would need a variance.
Do they need variances? So if you buy those limestone, those big blocks and stack those up, then you have to have a variance for those?
If you're doing any land disturbing, 12% slope area.
You're just stacking on top of the land. It goes along the grain of the slope.
And again, this is why we need site plans, we need plans to look at to see exactly what you're doing.
And we
So
keep,
you're not leaving-
or no, and that's why we ask these questions, because we come by and put those on there. And then, but so help me understand that. So the 12% slope, what you're saying, you can have in your ordinance a fence, so you can take a fence post and dig a 2-foot hole, put concrete in and build a fence, and there's no rule against that in any sloped area, correct?
Well, the areas that you're putting in is flat. The fences that you're putting in doesn't have a slope issue.
No, follow me.
Yeah, just generally.
I'm just saying, if I'm a farmer, if I want to put up a fence for my cattle, that used to be a pig farm, okay, because we took out tons of fence. And there was posts dug 2 feet down. So if I want to use my ag right and put a fence, a barn out there with pigs, and you put a post in with 2 feet of concrete, and you're on the slopes, put your fence up along the ridge, you're saying you need a variance for that.
If you are doing any land disturbing, 12% slope, agriculture or otherwise, you need to get a variance.
So if it's a fence for my pigs, I can do it.
No, I said agricultural or otherwise, doesn't matter, the slope regulations apply to any use.
If you look at the definition for land disturbing and you'll see that agriculture is not accepted in that, still, you can't disturb on the slopes. You can stack stone and call it a retaining wall, but you see that, have that in your site plans.
Well, I know the one area that she, Emma's Ford, Kelsey wanted me for one of the area needed some more dirt, and to do that, it made more sense to put a wall up to get the dirt that it doesn't come down, and it then made more sense, a lot easier to do that on one of those ridges. And that's all I was trying to do is keep the erosion there. But if it's one of those things that can't be protected, but I guess if I stack those stone up, then that's something we could do. But my biggest concern is that if we keep that road, that curve, somebody's gonna die. And we made that very clear in our presentation that some fence or something has to catch some kind of vehicle that rolls down that hill, it doesn't go into the lake. So something needs to be applied there.
We could, I don't know that we've seen any other alternative design. We just saw different roads. So if you wanted to propose some sort of fence or rail or.
So I just want to know what the fence rule was, so, okay. So basically you're saying if it lays on top of dirt or land, you're not disturbing it.
I don't think there's a fence rule. I think there's a land disturbing rule on the slopes and.
But you're disturbing the land, we put a fence in.
If you read the definition of land disturbing, it'll tell you what land disturbing is, and I think you'll be able to figure out what it isn't. And you're an intelligent person, you'll be able to figure it out.
But I can't. That's why I'm here asking. I'm using Todd and I still don't know. So when you're saying I'm intelligent, I got Todd here, I got two attorneys, and I still don't know. So I see it. I see what you said. I read that. I got two attorneys, Todd here, an expert, and I still can't figure it out. I still don't know.
I think if you're gonna put a fence in, put it in your site plan and see if they can help you figure it out. That's part of your development.
If again, wasting, if I can't get the ruling for it, why put it in and be stopped and use the word stop and I'm stopped and I'm delayed for another 2 months? I'm trying to say, hey, county, what is the fence rule?
There's a fence rule.
So we talked about what needs an improvement location permit and what does not. I think,
And I guess I just don't understand that when you put a fence and you're digging a hole 2 feet down and pouring concrete in, holds fence there. Post there, you're disturbing the land.
He is saying that you cannot do that. In the 12% slope, you cannot put a fence in.
That's why I raised the slope issue when we were talking about the fence earlier, because I wanted to make it clear that, you know, if you extend that fence way beyond the gate, you're gonna get into some sloped areas and it may be an issue. And I just wanted you to.
And that's why, I think that's where I'm so confused when we did our settlement with you on number 7 for ag rights, that how are you then making somebody get a permit to put up a fence for their ag rights in that area, in that slope area? I don't get that. I don't get that, but that's gonna be determined, not by us. That's gonna be determined, but that's what I think is wrong. So, okay,
Understood.
all right, thank you.
right, thank you,
Thank you, guys. Ladies, good luck with everything. We don't talk to you.
thank you.